So, folks, we got to talk about apparently the Iran war is done? Question mark? Sort of. Maybe. Kind of? Maybe. Let's talk about it. Here is, Donald Trump didn't really care enough about this to put out anything official, but luckily JD Vance cared about it and is trying to maybe make himself the face of what this administration deems a success, right? And let's talk about it.
Vice President Vance here to talk a little bit about what is in the Iran deal, the great peace deal that the President of the United States made last night. Number one, what this deal means is that the Straits of Hormuz are open immediately. You're already seeing oil and gas prices come down just over the past 24 hours. Number two, it ensures that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. And we have to back up for a second and appreciate that what the president has done is completely decimated Iran's nuclear program. Now, this deal really has two pathways. On the one hand, if the Iranians make the long-term commitments never to rebuild, then they're going to be welcomed into the world economy. If, on the other hand, they try to rebuild that nuclear program, they're never going to have the resources in order to do so. So it's a win-win for the American people. We ensure Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon either way. And now it's really up to the Iranians. Over the next few months, we're going to see if they're serious about dismantling that program for the long term. If they do, the president has said, we want their country to be successful. But what we know is that our country is successful thanks to great presidential leadership and a lot of good decisions. Thank you, guys.
Wow, what an inspiring press release from the vice president. Now, what is actually in the deal so far that we know about? Because the Trump administration hasn't been great about releasing any of these details. From what we all need to understand is the Memorandum of Understanding. Now, I want to be clear, a Memorandum of Understanding is not the same as a peace deal. It's not the same as anything like that. It's just like a mutual understanding. You know? I just have one quick question. What nuclear program? But let's take a look at what's in the memorandum. Okay? Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said both sides had declared an immediate and permanent end of all military operations. All sides have said the Memorandum of Understanding on the end of the war will be signed in Switzerland on Friday. Now, it has apparently been signed electronically, but it remains to be seen whether either side will fully recognize this deal until it's signed on Friday. And I want to be very clear, a lot of things can happen between now and Friday. Like a lot of different things. And we'll get to what those things might be. But I would not be getting super celebratory just yet. I know some people are like, wow, it's over now. I'm not going to believe it until I actually see it happen. But we'll continue to talk about it here. All right? Iran and the U.S. have both said that the Strait of Hormuz would start to reopen and the U.S. blockade on Iranian ports start to lift as soon as the memorandum is signed. This has apparently already begun to happen. At the very least, shipping vessels have been allowed through the strait in both directions. But again, that could be reversed relatively easily. Okay? Both sides have said negotiations on more difficult, further areas of dispute, notably Iran's nuclear issue and U.S. sanctions on Iran, will be conducted over the following 60 days. Which is, again, what makes what J.D. Vance said a lie. The idea that this makes it impossible for Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon, that hasn't been negotiated yet. At all. Like, they're giving themselves 2 months to continue negotiating on nuclear deals, as well as the lifting of U.S. sanctions on Iran. So, and it's important to note that the lifting of U.S. sanctions on Iran are just kind of held as like a different thing from any kind of reparations or anything else like that, which we'll get to here. Okay? Now, we've gotten conflicting reports. The idea that the Strait of Hormuz is now open has been propagated by a lot of conservative media. It seems like it's opening, rather, would be the operative word, though the Iranians insist that it's not going to be open until Friday after the physical signing. We'll see how that goes. Then we also have to deal with the reality that while there appears to be at the moment no tolls being charged on the vessels going through at the moment, Iran and Oman both seem to be in agreement that some kind of oversight of traffic through the Strait of Hormuz will be going forward. And what exactly that might look like is unclear. There is some kind of speculation that Iran and Oman are going to work together to charge some kind of toll or service fee to any vessels traversing the Strait of Hormuz. And like, this would be a definitive loss for the United States as well as harm global trade, but it would be a loss that I think a lot of countries would put up with in order to resume some kind of status quo of normal. However, this does also tip off the Yemenis and the Houthis in Yemen, rather, that they might be able to pull a similar thing with the Bab al-Mandeb Strait that's near them. And they could begin charging tolls as well, or service fees, whatever form this takes, could be simply replicated by the Houthis. And this, again, might start some kind of race to see who can control which waterways. The potential for bad things happening here is quite great. We'll see, right? At the very least, JD Vance has said, well, they're not going to start charging tolls until we've negotiated that, which kind of leaves the question of, like, well, that seems like something that should have been negotiated already. But I'm waiting for there to be a lot of definitive L's for the Trump administration with this deal. Already it's pretty full of L's, but we'll see. Now, as far as their nuclear program goes, both sides have apparently agreed that Iran will not produce or acquire nuclear weapons, but this is also something that Iran has been saying the entire time. And they have also said they're not going to work on any nuclear program until any deal is signed, which they weren't doing anyway because they don't have access to their enriched uranium. And Trump is also saying that, oh, well, we don't have to retrieve the uranium that's buried right now anyway. The United States will go in and get it when everything is calmed down. Like, this seems really wibbly wobbly to me, if I'm being completely honest, looking at the terms. We also have to take a look at the fact that any kind of finalized deal here would need to be approved by Congress, and I'm not entirely sure that there's enough support among Democrats and Republicans in order to do that. I think if we were in a sane time, people would. But we're living in insane times, and there are very hawkish elements of the Republican Party that want to continue bombing Iran. Now, I think the real sticking point here is going to be Lebanon, right? Now, the agreement per Reuters here, Sharif said the immediate and permanent end of all military operations would include Lebanon. The Secretariat of Iran's Supreme National Security Council said military operations would stop permanently on Monday night, including in Lebanon. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said there must be a complete halt to Israeli attacks against Lebanon, and the U.S. bears responsibility for implementing the framework deal. And then Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz said the Israeli military would remain in security zones it has captured in Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza, and the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had made this clear to Trump. Before the memorandum was announced, Trump said he would bring peace to the region, including Lebanon. He said there would be no more Israeli attacks on Lebanon and no more attacks by the Iran-backed Lebanese group Hezbollah on Israel. And to be very, very clear, Israel remaining in their security zones in Lebanon is not acceptable to the Iranians, as well as the fact that it's not acceptable to Hezbollah and it's not acceptable to Israel. And Israel has continued to bomb Lebanon throughout today, and Hezbollah has responded in kind. Basically, all of the communication coming out of the Israeli side is, well, that Israel is not going to adhere to this. Israel is not bound by the U.S.-Iran agreement and will continue attacking regional countries, says Gila Gamliel, a member of Israel's political security cabinet and science minister. Quote, "We are not a party to the agreement, and from our perspective, we will continue until we achieve the goal of disarming Hezbollah," she told Israel's Channel 7 on Monday evening. Her comments underline Israel's refusal to accept limits on its military action despite the emerging regional ceasefire framework. Gamliel also said that Israel intends to continue occupying parts of Lebanon and will not allow residents to return to areas under Israeli control. "Realistically, we are deeply entrenched inside Lebanon, and we do not intend to withdraw from the areas we have controlled up to the Litani River and Beaufort Castle, where the Israeli army enjoys complete freedom of movement. We will not allow the population to return until Hezbollah is disarmed, because that is what protects our northern residents." She also said Trump was stalling to buy time, pointing to the World Cup, his birthday celebrations, Independence Day, and midterm elections. Basically, a huge flaw in this entire peace plan is that Israel necessarily has to cooperate. And if they don't, this peace deal isn't going to last very long. The ceasefire is not going to last very long. And unless we see Donald Trump begin meaningfully threatening economic support and political support and military support to Israel, they are going to keep doing what they do, right? I just, this is all going very poorly, I would say. The idea that Iran is just going to accept a permanent occupation by Israeli forces within Lebanon and say, well, that's not a violation of the ceasefire. I very, very, very much doubt that. Okay? And I will also say that there is a talk of around a $300 billion reconstruction fund being made available to Iran. And I want to remind folks, this is what Donald Trump was saying about the JCPOA and how Donald Trump gave $1.7 billion in green cash loaded into a Boeing 757 and flown to Iran for Iranian leadership to spend any way they saw fit. He emptied out all of the cash from banks in DC, Virginia, and Maryland. Those bankers said they'd never seen anything like it before. In addition, hundreds of billions of dollars was paid to Iran. If I did not terminate that deal, nuclear weapons would have been used on Israel and all over the Middle East, including our cherished U.S. military bases. And he says all of this and then sends out J.D. Vance to, eat shit, basically.
Walk through some of this. The Iranians are saying that they're going to have access to a $300 billion reconstruction fund. True or false?
Well, Ed, that's the sort of thing they could have access to, funded by the Gulf Coast Coalition, so long as they honor their end of the obligation. I think that one of the things you're going to see, Ed, and people have to be skeptical of this, is that the hardliners in the Iranian system will overemphasize the benefits that Iran gets while underemphasizing all the things that they have to concede and all the things they have to provide in order to get these benefits. So we absolutely are open to the Gulf Coast countries investing in the reconstruction of Iran, but only if Iran ends their nuclear program, ends their enriched stockpile of material, and is really open to an inspections and enforcement regime that gives the American people confidence they're never going to have a nuclear weapon. So I think the dance you're going to see, Ed, which is going to be interesting, is the Iranian media, especially the hardline media, they're going to talk a lot about what they get without talking about what they give. It's important for all of us to correct that record.
But Iran isn't giving nothing that Iran is giving is they're getting everything that they wanted. like a $300 billion reconstruction fund, like an end to the US blockade. They're getting a cessation of hostilities. They are getting quite a bit. What is baffling to me is we've taken a deal where the United States provided $1.7 billion of Iran's own money to them, a lot, and we had assurances from an international org verifying that they didn't have a nuclear program. And Trump ripped all of that up, and now we have a far worse deal where likely there's going to be some kind of toll system on international trade. And Iran gets $300 billion, and America's stuck paying the bill for both that and for replenishing all of the military materials that we wasted. And, like, we got nothing out of this. We got nothing out of this. Nothing at all. It is very likely to be $300 billion of our taxpayer money. It truly is Donald Trump's art of the deal. It's just the art of the deal he made when, going bankrupt while running casinos. Like, this is a piece, an excerpt from Politico, which I think is very clearly the case here. Right? Even in the most optimistic scenarios, the reshaped Middle East envisioned by Trump's team is years away. While the White House argues economic relief for Iran will be enough to keep things moving forward, the arrangement is not the simple carrot it describes. Tehran has also walked away from the fighting with its own bargaining chips. Iran knows Washington's leverage is limited. If nuclear talks collapse and the US strikes again, Tehran can simply shut the Strait of Hormuz and reignite the global economic pain everyone is trying to avoid, said Jonathan Panikoff, a former career intelligence officer who worked on the Middle East and is now at the Atlantic Council. He added, "We know that Iran is willing to absorb more pain economically than it thinks the US and the global community are willing to absorb." So, like, ultimately, what we're looking at here is, like, a definitive L for the United States. Could there be some upsides to that? I guess so. But it's difficult to see and infuriating to see our taxpayer dollars absolutely misused. Used to kill innocent school children, used to completely undermine ourselves on a geopolitical and military level. And, like, ultimately, for what? We got nothing, and they got everything they wanted. Like, geopolitically, this is the sweetheart deal for them. And yes, Iran was absolutely justified in doing what it did. And if the United States strikes them again, they'll be justified in shutting down the Strait of Hormuz again. It's the main deterrent. And now they know it absolutely works. I don't know. I would characterize this as a U.S. surrender to Iran. But it is very, very likely that Israel is going to ruin this, and also very, very likely that negotiations between the folks from Iran who actually bothered to study the United States and care about, like, diplomacy and shit, they have to go into a room with Donald Trump's handpicked morons. And, like, ultimately, what's going to happen here is I cannot foresee a situation where Trump's team manages to clinch any kind of good outcome here. Trump got to be racist, though. Yeah, but he was going to be racist anyway. So, all that being said, congrats, MAGA. You humiliated America on the world stage, diminished American power, wasted American taxpayer dollars, and ultimately, what it left us with was a exponentially more expensive JCPOA. Well, Iran gets to walk away with all the money, and knowing that they have an effective global deterrent right in their backyard. Doesn't even need to be nuclear. So, there you have it. Congrats, we lost. All that being said, if you got anything out of this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think is going to break first when it comes to this memorandum of understanding. And also, get organized, folks. Join your local Dems. Join your local DSA. Get organized today. Join our Discord. Reach out to GamerG for help with DSA. Reach out to Dragonfly for help with your local Dems. We need folks to get organized. We need folks to get, like, really passionate. We need people to spend time knocking on doors, phone banking, text banking, all that stuff. And folks, also, please consider checking out Progressive Victory. Don't use the Progressive Victory links in chat. They haven't been fixed. They don't use them, please. Use them in the description for the video. All of that being said, check out ImogeneOlivia.com, gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes. Also tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. Go check it out. ImogeneOlivia.com. It is comfortable, sexy, non-tucking lingerie. ImogeneOlivia.com. Link in the doobly-doo. Let's keep on going.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube and swishy streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, being, flame more. Your sense of fashion